All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We all know you're here because you want to be ahead of the curve, right? You want to understand the big things, and you want to understand them fast. And well, today we're going to dive into something that is seriously shaping the future of AI.
Hmm.
How we make sense of how these AIs act when there's a whole lot of them.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, we're moving beyond just looking at a single AI doing its thing. We're talking about like frameworks. Think of them like these advanced labs where researchers can observe how tons of AIs behave when they're all together.
So it's like instead of studying a single ant, we're looking at the entire ant colony.
Exactly. And you know what we're using to look at these AI colonies today?
Lay it on me.
CAMEL.
Camel.
Yeah. And it's not just another fancy AI term, right from their GitHub page, which is where we're getting most of our info from today. CAMEL, which stands for, get this, Communicative Agents for Mind Exploration of Large Language Model Society. It says, and I quote, the first and the best multi-agent framework.
Bold statement.
I know, right? But what's really cool is it's got this huge open source community around it. Like there are over 100 researchers all working together trying to figure out the rules, what they call scaling laws of how these AIs behave when you have so many of them. And you can check out all their work at camel-ai.org.
Okay, so to sum it up for our listeners, we're going deep on Camel today. We're going to figure out what it is, why all these researchers are so hyped about it, and what kind of doors it opens to study these AI agents.
You got it.
All from their GitHub. All right, so first things first. What exactly is Camel, like in plain English?
So basically, think of CAMEL as a toolkit, a super well-organized set of tools and instructions that researchers can use to really dig deep into how AIs behave, what they can do, and, any potential problems they might cause, especially when there's a lot of them.
Gotcha. So the whole point is to study them on a large scale,
Yeah,
not just individual AIs.
that's exactly it. It's not just about making individual AIs a little bit better. It's about looking at what happens when you have a whole bunch of them working together, what new things emerge.
And this isn't just some, academic thing, right? Their GitHub makes it clear that it's open source and it's all about community.
Oh, yeah, totally. The fact that there are over 100 researchers working on it, that says a lot. They really believe in this approach. The core idea is that you can't really understand how AIs act by just looking at one at a time. You've got to see how they act in a group.
So it's like less about one AI solving a problem, more about how they work together. Or maybe even, compete with each other.
Exactly. And they're not just talking about it. The GitHub page shows they've made actual tools, different types of agents like AIs with special skills, different tasks they can do, different ways to give them instructions, different models they can use, even simulated worlds for them to live in. It's amazing.
Wow, so they've basically built a whole research lab for these multi-agent AIs.
Yeah, pretty much. And you know how on GitHub you can see those stars and forks? Well, it has 8.8 thousand stars and 921 forks. And the open source world, that's a lot.
So people are definitely paying attention.
Big time. Plus, it's under the Apache 2.0 license, which basically means anyone can use it and build on it.
Okay, so CAMEL's this open, community-driven framework to study lots of AIs together. But what are the, ground rules? How did they design it? What were the main ideas?
So there are 4 big design principles they talk about on GitHub. The first one is evolvability. It means these multi-agent systems aren't fixed. They can actually get better over time, either from the data they generate themselves or by interacting with these simulated environments. It's like they can learn using either reinforcement learning, where they learn by getting rewards, or supervised learning, where they learn from labeled examples. And it's not just like getting a little better. The exciting part is that totally new strategies or even new types of intelligence could just pop up.
Whoa, so the system can, evolve. The AIs can learn and change.
Yeah, totally. The next principle is scalability. Since the whole point is to study huge groups of AIs, the framework is built to handle systems with millions of agents. And it's not just about the numbers, it's about making sure they can coordinate, communicate, and share resources efficiently. Imagine millions of AIs all working at the same time.
Millions. That's just mind-boggling. It's like managing a whole digital world.
I know, right? Okay, next up is statefulness. This is all about memory. The agents in CAMEL, they don't just react to what's happening right now. They can remember past interactions and experiences. This helps them have longer, more complex conversations and tackle harder tasks that need them to remember what happened before.
So they can learn from their mistakes and build on what worked before.
Exactly. And that's super important for any kind of collaboration or complex problem solving. And the last principle is, this is a cool one, code as prompt. So in CAMEL, the actual code that's written for the agents, along with any comments in the code, is used as a way to guide them. The idea is that good, clear code isn't just for humans to understand, it can also help the AI agents themselves figure out what they're supposed to do.
So like the code itself is a set of instructions for the AI.
Yeah, so if you have an agent that's supposed to write summaries, and in the code there's a comment that says, like, focus on the main financial numbers, that comment becomes part of the instructions for the AI.
That's a really neat connection between coding and AI. Okay, so we've got the design principles down, but why are all these researchers choosing CAMEL? What are the big reasons they list on their GitHub page?
Okay, so first, the ability to create a large-scale agent system is huge, simulating up to 1 million agents. That lets researchers look at emergent behavior, those unexpected patterns that only pop up in big groups, and see how these AI societies scale.
Emergent behavior. So like how individual neurons firing can lead to consciousness, but for AIs.
Yeah, exactly. It's about understanding how complexity arises from these interactions. Next, CAMEL allows for dynamic communication. The agents can interact and work together in real time, so they can communicate, coordinate their actions, and really collaborate to achieve a shared goal.
So they're not just working independently. They can like chat and negotiate with each other.
Exactly. It's all about teamwork for AIs. Then, of course, there's stateful memory, which we talked about. Lets them remember stuff and act more intelligently over time.
Right, right. What else is there?
Oh, this is important. Support for multiple benchmarks. This means researchers can test their agents on standard tasks and compare the results to others in a fair way. It's like standardized tests, but for AIs. Helps make sure everyone is measuring progress in the same way.
So it's like standardized testing for AI societies. Makes sense. What other benefits does CAMEL have for researchers?
So there's support for different agent types. CAMEL is super flexible. Researchers can use all sorts of agents, tasks, models, and environments. It can be used for all kinds of research questions in all kinds of fields. And lastly, there's data generation and tool integration. CAMEL can automatically create huge datasets, which is super helpful for training and testing AI models. It can also easily connect with other specialized tools, which makes the whole research process from start to finish way smoother.
Sounds like CAMEL could really speed up AI research. Okay, so with all these features, what can you actually build with it? What are some applications they mention?
They highlight 3 main areas. First, data generation, which we already talked about. You can use CAMEL to create tons of data to train and test AI models in all sorts of areas. Second is task automation. You can build systems with multiple AIs that can work together to automate really complex tasks.
So like, imagine a team of AI assistants all working on a project, each with their own specialty.
Exactly. They can each handle a different part of the task and work together to get it done. And third, world simulation. They can create simulated environments with AIs interacting, which allows them to study all sorts of things like, how markets work, how information spreads, or even how social rules develop.
That's so cool. You can basically create virtual societies of AIs and see how they evolve.
Yep. Now let's get a bit more technical. They have a tech stack section that describes all the different parts of CAMEL that make all this possible.
Okay, let's hear it.
First, there are the agents themselves, which is basically the code that defines how each AI acts. Then there's agent societies, which is the framework that helps manage all these AIs and their interactions. We already talked about the data generation module. Then there's the models module, which lets researchers customize the AI models that power the agents. Tool integration is really important, and they have a module for that, so the agents can use external tools for specific jobs. There's a memory module to handle, the AI's memory. Oh, and they also have modules for storage, benchmarks, interpreters, data loaders, retrievers, which are used for this thing called retrieval augmented generation, a runtime environment, and even human-in-the-loop components for when you need a human to step in and oversee things.
Wow, that's a lot. They've thought of everything.
Right. It's a really well-designed system. And, like we talked about, it's all community-driven.
Yeah, that was really impressive. So what are they focused on researching with CAMEL, and how can someone join the party?
So their main goal, as they say on their GitHub, is to learn more about how AI agents behave, what they can do, and any risks they might pose, all by studying them at a large scale. And they really want other people to use CAMEL for their own research and join their projects. They even give an email address for people who want to collaborate. It's all about working together.
It's great that they're so open. Oh, and I saw they have a bunch of data sets on Hugging Face. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, that's a great resource. They have data on AI interactions, code generation, math, physics, chemistry, even biology. And the datasets are in different formats, like chat logs, instructions, even translated conversations. They even have visualizations to help people understand the data. So researchers don't just get the tools, they get a bunch of data to play with too.
That's a great way to get people started. Okay, now for the people who want to actually get their hands dirty, they have these cookbooks, right?
Yeah, the cookbooks are like tutorials and guides for using CAMEL. They've got a bunch of different categories. There's basic concepts, which covers the basics, like how to create an agent, a group of agents, how they talk to each other. Then there's advanced features, which goes into more complex stuff, like integrating external tools, using memory, and implementing this thing called retrieval augmented generation. That involves using like knowledge graphs to make the agents even smarter.
So these advanced features are like the next level of multi-agent systems.
Uh-huh. Exactly. And they also have cookbooks on model training and data generation where they show you how to create data with CAMEL and then fine-tune models using tools like Unsloth. They also show you how to work with specific data formats, generate data for this chain of thought reasoning, and even how to upload your data sets to Hugging Face so everyone can use them. And then there's a section on multi-agent systems and applications with examples of how to build real-world things. They show you how to make web scrapers that can role play to get you information, build AI committees to judge hackathons, and even how to create customer service bots on Discord using both agentic retrieval, augmented generation, and local AI models. It's really amazing what you can do with it.
Those are some cool examples. I like that they're showing people how to build practical stuff. What about that data processing section? What's that about?
Oh, yeah. So that section is all about using agents to analyze video data, different ways to get and process data from websites using tools like Firecrawl, and even how to work with PDFs using tools like Chunker and these really powerful models from Mistral AI. They want to give people the skills to use CAMEL for real data problems.
So they're really making CAMEL easy to use and showing its potential. What if someone wants to contribute to CAMEL itself? How do they do that?
Well, on their GitHub page, they have a contributing to CAMEL section. They really encourage people to contribute code, and they have guidelines for how to do it, but you don't have to be a coder. They also say that just spreading the word about CAMEL, like talking about it on social media or at events, is super helpful.
So anyone can help, coder or not. What about staying in touch with the CAMEL team? How can people reach out?
They have a bunch of ways. You can use GitHub issues to report bugs, suggest features, and just see what's going on with the project. They have a Discord server for real-time help, discussions, and connecting with other people who are using CAMEL. They're also active on X, what used to be Twitter, where they share updates and announcements. And for the super passionate CAMEL fans, they even have an ambassador project.
Wow, so many ways to connect. Okay, so like any good research project, giving credit where credit is due is really important. Do they have info on how to cite CAMEL?
Yes, they give a specific citation for their research paper, which was presented at this big AI conference called NURI PS in 2023. And they have a whole section on acknowledgments where they thank Nomic AI for giving them access to their Atlas tool and Haya Hammoud for creating the CAMEL logo. They also mention that they use ideas from other research like Baby AGI, Persona Hub, and Self-Instruct, and they ask people to cite those original papers if they use those specific parts of CAMEL in their own work. It's all about good research ethics.
That's great to see. Okay, so we've learned a lot about CAMEL today. What do you think is the most important thing about it?
I think the biggest thing about CAMEL is that it gives us a powerful way to explore this whole new world of large-scale multi-agent AI systems. It gives researchers the tools they need to understand how AIs behave when there are lots of them, how they work together, and how they interact in these shared spaces. It's not just about making AI more powerful, it's about understanding the complex dynamics that emerge when you have AI societies.
And I think the fact that it's open source and community driven is super important. It makes this kind of cutting edge research accessible to everyone.
Absolutely. It makes AI research more democratic and collaborative. The data sets, the documentation, the cookbooks, it all shows that they want to make CAMEL useful and have a real impact on AI research.
Okay, so for our listeners who are totally intrigued, where should they start if they want to learn more?
Definitely check out the CAMEL GitHub page. Just search for CAMEL iCAMEL. You'll find the code, all the documentation, and links to all the community stuff we talked about. And if you want to see CAMEL in action, look for their demo of a conversation between two ChatGPT agents. It's a really cool example of how these multi-agent interactions work.
That sounds awesome. Thanks for all this info. And for our listeners, here's a final thought. As AIs get smarter and more connected and they start forming these complex digital societies, what kind of unexpected things will we discover about them using frameworks like CAMEL? And how will understanding all this change the way we develop AI and how it impacts our lives? That's something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.